it really wasn't a dramatic enough jump to a color screen or a backlit screen to compete with, say, the Sega Game Gear. So was this it? Was this going to be the last attempt at Game Boy competing? So when the Game Boy Color was released, it was really one of those moments of, did they just do that? Was that the big improvement from the original Game Boy? Because at the time, you have to understand that backlighting wasn't uncommon. I mean, even during the Game Boy's production, you had the Sega Game Gear that had backlighting. So why is it that when they announced the next generation of the Game Boy, they didn't include backlighting? Now, a lot of people might speculate that in order to help developers making games for the Game Boy have kind of an extension on that with the Game Boy Color, and while simultaneously working with other developers on a secret project, which then we came to know as the Game Boy Advance, this was kind of a stopgap. This was something that, you know, would appease the market in terms of the demand for a color screen, but it still followed that kind of Game Boy, you know, production methodology where you take existing older technologies that are well proven and bake them into something that's reliable and low cost to produce. Either way, it was very effective because the Game Boy Color dominated the handheld market again, but you could almost argue that that was due to the success of Pokemon. But the Game Boy Color wasn't devoid of innovation. There was other things that we saw for the first time on a handheld. Now, while at the time you had cell phones back then didn't have cameras. And the Game Boy Color had the Game Boy camera that you could slide in and take photos with. And with the printer accessory, print off those photos. Now, the photos weren't of any good quality, but it was still pretty cool to be able to have a handheld device that could take photographs. And more importantly, you had an infrared sensor at the top where the power switch used to be. This would allow you to really, for wireless connectivity for the first time in a handheld, trade information. Like in the Pokemon franchise, if you wanted to trade Pokemon that you captured with another player, that's how you did it. And it was pretty cool at the time, but again, it's kind of glossed over now because a lot of these technologies are commonplace. But in the era of the Game Boy Color, you know, maybe it's one of the things that helped it stand out and dominate the market yet again. I think what really helped the Game Boy Color stand out is that you could finally play an NES game on a handheld. And Super Mario Bros. Deluxe was probably one of the most popular games on the NES console, but when ported over to the Game Boy Color, there was one glaring issue, and that was the crop on the screen. If you don't remember, Super Mario Bros. On the NES was a pretty challenging game, but when the screen was cropped, you were really put at a disadvantage because you couldn't see if there was a pit to fall into or an enemy coming. There was really a large portion of the screen that was left off the table. And when you look at it compared to the console version or even the Game Boy Advance version, you could really see how when you're playing this, you'd be at a huge disadvantage. If there was a redeeming quality to playing it on the Game Boy, it's that you had save states. So, you know, if you did lose your progress to an unfair advantage of a crop screen, at least it would save and you wouldn't lose all your progress when the game was over. one of the things that you saw in the Game Boy Color was the re-release of older games from the Game Boy, but now in a DX version so that you could play them in color. And what was cool about these games is that you could actually play these on the Game Boy or on the Game Boy Color. And if you played it on the Game Boy Color, you would get a colorized version of the game. And in some cases, you actually got a little bit of extra content, which, you know, made picking up a new copy worth it. In some ways, you could look at this as a cash grab, but I think it was nice to see that you had a reason to revisit these titles and play them with a faster processor, better graphics, and a colorized screen. So with the Game Boy Color falling short of expectations, I think all of us were filled with anticipation that the next iteration of the Game Boy is going to be a leap in performance and it's going to have that backlit screen. Well, it was a leap in performance, but still no backlit screen. And much to my surprise, the form factor changed completely. Now, a lot of people, this is subjective, whether or not you like this over the traditional where the screen is on top. But I think we can agree that for the sweet spot in finding the screen, especially not being backlit, it was a lot harder to do when it was shaped like a controller. And I know a lot of people would argue that, well, the Game Boy Advance is just, it's better designed to hold in your hands. But what I find is that it's constantly slipping out of my grip. There's just nothing below that I can use these fingers for. And again, it's subjective, it depends on your play style, but I mean, in the next episode, you'll see I modded 2 of these Game Boy Advance thinking that that would be the ultimate handheld console, and it just, still after playing it for hours, going back and forth, I wouldn't put this at the top of my list. So another thing to point out with the Game Boy Advance is that the buttons actually changed. How they feel, their tactile response. I almost prefer playing these reissued games on the Game Boy Advance because it just feels more snappier, more responsive. And I think the only gripe that I have really about the button layout is the start and select being on the left-hand side. I always constantly try and find it below the screen, but it's just, again, it takes some getting used to. But the point here is that, you know, the buttons just felt more responsive. And even in the Game Boy Advance SP, you didn't have the same buttons on there, and you can notice a difference. I mean, it's minor, but I certainly prefer it on the Advance. One of the most important things that the Game Boy Advance did was backwards compatibility. Now, when you think about gaming consoles and parents who are just frustrated when a new console comes out because, oh great, now I have to buy a new system, I have to buy new games, nothing from before works now. It really was, I think, an advantage that the Game Boy Advance had. Not only could you play your game library from the Game Boy Color, but it would colorize the games as well, which just added more value. It's something that I think makes the Game Boy what it is that it really does give gamers what they want, and that's to be able to play, you know, their entire gaming library, even if it spans different generations of console. So with the Game Boy Advance still being a great handheld console, but a disappointment in the screen, this is where the Game Boy Advance SP did a lot of things right, but still wrong. So here we are again, the new release of a Game Boy, and it's gonna have a lit up screen, but it's edge-lit. Another example of using old technology in a new hardware release, but we didn't care. Now we could finally plug in our headphones, have an illuminated display, and get gaming. But wait, they got rid of the headphone jack. So if you think Apple was the first one to cash in on the dongle craze, think again. So looking back on the Game Boy Advance SP, yeah, we were very excited that we had a lit up display and a new form factor, but we didn't know at the time that they actually came out with a different variation with a much better screen that was actually backlit. And we're not just talking about a small difference here. The color, how you can see the screen, there's a massive difference in gameplay quality. And if you're looking for these now and wondering, well, how do I determine between the two? The easiest way is to look on the serial number on the back. You can actually see on the original, it says AGS 001. But the better screen, you want to look for the AGS 101. And it makes a huge difference, believe me. And another thing, the Game Boy Advance SP finally had a built-in rechargeable battery. No longer did you have to hunt for the TV remote or try and steal some Duracells out of the drawer and to power your console. You finally had a way just to plug in and let your battery charge. And all these years later, as a grab-and-go device, I still don't have to worry about charging this thing. It still holds a relatively good charge, and it just is a testament to the build quality of Nintendo. So an honorable mention is the Game Boy Micro. Now, while it could be looked at as kind of just a cash grab and a bit of a failure, it wasn't backwards compatible, it was really awkward to have, I wouldn't say it's worth going out and getting one, but you know, it's kind of a significant moment that marked the end of the Game Boy. So looking at some of the games on the Game Boy Advance, you really started to see Super Nintendo games come across to the handheld. Now, while they weren't identical, it'd be hard to distinguish. I mean, in Super Mario World 2 or Super Mario World Super Mario Advance 2, you had, you know, a bit different mixing on the soundtrack. The color was a little bit different, but in terms of the secrets and the full game, this is what really attracted an older audience to the console. I don't know who was behind this at Nintendo, but it's so confusing. Rather than just saying Super Mario on the Game Boy Advance, they went Super Mario Advance. Makes sense, tie in the Advance title. But then they went Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. And then for Super Mario 3, they went Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. And while there were a ton of great games on the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advanced SP systems, really the only ones that stood out for me were the Super Nintendo ports. So every now and again, what I love about Nintendo is that they release something that scratches that nostalgia itch. Now, this came in the form of a Game Boy Advance that was NES themed, but in doing so, they also released NES titles on the appropriate gray cartridge with the black label and also in the black box. This was something that, you know, I think they know that their core fan base just wants, and it was really cool to see this library, this lineup of great games now available, you know, for some retro gaming on this new handheld. So with the Game Boy Advanced SP and the AGS 101 finally being what everyone wanted, a properly backlit, full color array, great form factor, huge library and backwards compatibility, you're kind of left wondering, well, what's left? And I think that's what, for various reasons, this might be one of them, sparked the desire to start modifying the originals. Because I think the form factor of the original was great, and people started wondering, well, could we get performance and displays like this into something like this? So if you thought this video was helpful, please like and subscribe, show your support, and keep an eye out for the other episodes in this series. Thanks for watching. Really, it was quite innovative in that, you know, this was, I knew it when I said it, but I was like, innovative? Okay, innovative. So I just want to take a quick moment to thank the actual customer who owns these products. Typically in WhyBuy reviews, it's always the customer who owns a product talking about it on screen, but in this special series, there was just such a great collection that we had an opportunity to cover that we didn't want to pass on the opportunity. So working with the customer who owns these products, kind of coaching me and explaining their story and having me sort of retell it was really special. And it, you know, not only helped me relive my nostalgia and love for Nintendo and handheld video games. But I really do think that it was a special treat to be able to cover just such a wide range of this collection and deliver something that is not only educational, but just a lot of fun. So thanks for watching, and thank you to everyone who is involved in this and made it possible.